Okay. Hello everyone. This is Velero community meeting on December 7th. First, let's do some status update. We have created another patch release for 1.9.4, and we have bumped up RASIC to the version of 0.14. And we have create GA with 1.10 on November 29th. The release notes can be visited in this page. And we are also preparing 1.11, and we have finished the first round review of the candidates. And at present, the full candidate issues can be viewed in this page. And we will do another turn of review. And currently, the colleagues are doing investigation for the issues under investigation for the issues, and after that we will decide which issue or which and its fix will go into way 1.11 based on according to the issues investigation result and efforts. The other thing is for the data mover. We have finished the first round of discussion on the data mover. And the thing we want to create for the first phase is it's called the Velero's built-in data movement for CSI snapshot. So it means we will focus on move the data of the CSI snapshot, and additionally we want to create Velero built-in data movement, and also support the data movement plugin from third-party vendors. And I will give some introduction to this, share this document share this document later for the data movement. And for the personal update, myself is investigation on the way 1.11 candidate issues under my name. And I'm also investigating Velero built-in data movement for CSS snapshot. That's from my side. And Xun, please.
My work is to fix the plugins CVEs reported by the tree scanner, and cherry pick the fix into the 1.9 and 1.10 release. And that's all.
Okay, thanks. And Daniel?
Yeah, currently I'm working on the plan of version 1.11, discussing with the team what we need to do for the data mover, etc. And also investigating the 1.11 candidate issue that's under my name.
Okay, thanks. That's Scott.
Yeah, so the finally got the async plugin design merged. Thanks for the reviews there. There was some final comments near the end about clarifying cancel operation. I do intend to submit a PR to clarify that, but since that's just a documentation clarification, not functionality, I decided to go ahead and merge the PR so that we're not blocking on that, and I will submit that kind of minor doc change to that design in a separate PR later. And there are these three follow-on PRs, which are the specifically API designs in terms of showing what we need in the proto code for the V2 versions of the backup item action, restore item action, and volume snapshotter that add the new fields as discussed in the previously approved designs. So those also need to be reviewed. Those should be pretty quick to review because they're basically a small subset of what the overall design was. It's just specifying what the V2 API looks like for each of those plugin types. And again, since when we talk about the 111 timeline shortly, we'll see that it's a fairly short release cycle. So we need to get these designs reviewed and merged pretty quickly so I can get going on the implementation.
I have a quick question, Scott.
Yes.
I understand that you need the BIA and RIA to make sure the end-to-end workflow. So do you have any concrete use case you need a version 2 of volume snapshotter plugin?
So the changes for Data Mover aren't going to be modifying that plugin, but this entire design started as Dave's update to the volume snapshotter. The idea for volume snapshot uploads, we'd have to mark progress, and my design expanded that to include backup item action and restore item action. So I don't know that. For the data movement, we don't need to actually create a V2 version of those APIs, but we implement a plugin. But we need the API to be consistent so that and update it to add those new fields. So, if at some point we then want to take, for example, the AWS volume snapshotter plugin and update it to use the asynchronous actions, then the API definition is there in Velero to use. So there's, I guess you can think of it in two stages. This is just the API change. It's not actually implementing any plugins. So this defines the V2 API. It says the V2 exists for the plugins. We write the adapter so that the V1 plugins still work. At this point, we've now defined what V2 looks like, but all of the old V1 plugins still work. They don't make use of the new functionality. It will be a later step to actually implement V2 plugins as needed.
Yeah, for this question, I think technically speaking, so we can also do the data movement for the snapshot created by the volume snapshotter. So we will mention this in the this doc. Actually, so that means in future we may also need to do the data movement for volume snapshotter. So maybe it's a good thing to let it support the V2 version API.
Right, exactly. That's why I'm saying we need to define the API. We need to implement, all of the kind of supporting structure and the client server code and the Velero plugins in the package plugins directory. So everything's ready to support a V2 volume snapshotter. We don't have any yet. That's okay. The idea is to build the tooling into Velero to be ready to take it, so that if someone then wants to write that, then it's everything's ready. But because the design, the changes, for example, to backup, to call the plugins and then collect those operation IDs, and then go back when it's in the updating stages, that will apply to both backup item actions and volume snapshotters. For any plugins that return those operation IDs.
So you're saying for the delivery, the reason I ask this question is I'm thinking about the delivery of 1.11. I'm thinking if it's, do we consider it a successful release if we have the backup controller support the BIA, for example, but not the volume snapshotter? I think that would unblock us from at least the CSI data movement, right? So is that right to think the volume snapshotter support? Because we also need to update the code in backup controller separately to support volume snapshotter, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the API update is separate from then the modifying the controller to use it. So, I mean, we could probably implement this without that, but I think the API part is the easy part, because that's just implementing what's in the design already.
Sure.
When we get to modifying the controller, it might make sense to do it in two stages. And the first phase only adds the support for backup item action, and, for example, not for volume snapshotter yet. And then a follow-on, which might not be in 1.11, could add it for volume snapshotter. But the design that we just approved, though, does cover volume snapshotter as part of that as well.
Sure. So then, yeah, I think we're on the same page. I understand your point. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks a lot. And Wenkai?
Yeah, I'm also do some investigation on the 111 candidate issue that assigned to me.
Okay, thanks. And Ming?
Yeah, I'm releasing the 194 last month, including CV fix that's scanned by Trivi and bump up the heuristic to the latest version. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thanks. Okay, besides that, is there any update do we want to make right now? If not, we can go to the discussion topics. The first one is it is added by Orlin, and first he want to notify us that he will be on vacation on the 20th and 27th. So the community meeting on 27th will be skipped. I think that is for the US and Europe time zone. And he's asking about the 20th community meeting that is on the China time zone. How do we
Yeah,
think
that's
about
right.
this?
Yeah, we talked about this. Orlin brought it up last week. Specifically, the North American one on 27th, we had agreed we're going to skip that meeting because most of the people that would be normally participating in that meeting are on holiday then. He wasn't sure about the meeting on the 20th. You know, were people going to be on holiday then for the end of the year, or would people still going to be, you know, working? And basically that question was to leave it up to this meeting to decide, does it make sense to have the meeting 2 weeks from today, normal time, or to skip that meeting?
Yeah, so what do you think? Will you guys be on vacation? I'm sure not everyone in Beijing will be taking time off on
So,
20th.
so the 20th is not on an official holiday, but you know, a lot of people will be taking off early for holidays. So I expect I will be available on the 20th. I don't know about others at Red Hat. I think some will not probably. So I'm fine with having the meeting. I'm available, but if it's decided that we want to skip it because there won't be very many people there, that's fine too. I can go either way on that from my point of view.
Yeah, so personally, I think we can continue with that as long as you can be joining, so we can quickly go through some items, if any.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
okay.
I'll be available then.
Okay.
So we'll skip
So,
the 27th only. So
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay.
yeah, wait a minute. So here we leave 20th open, right?
Yes.
Okay, and the other item from Olin is like, I'm not sure what has been discussed for this PR and on the last community meeting, but Olin is asking us to discuss this PR. Scott, do you have any?
Yeah. So the reason, basically, he was on the call last week. He's in European time zone, so this meeting is not at all convenient for him. Unfortunately, last week, none of the people that had participated in the PR were here because it was also because Shuban was also still out. He'll be back next week. But and basically there was some back and forth on this. That I think the way that right now the restore PV is only active relating to the native snapshots, and CSI the CSI plugin does not use it, so that if you say restore PV is false, for example, and you're using CSI, it still attempts to use them. And I think his point in here in the PR was that the backup volumes field is used to I think it's called a snapshot. It's mentioned in the PR. I forget the name. There's a backup field that specifies whether we're taking snapshots. I think maybe it's just called snapshot volumes. But anyway, that field is checked by both CSI and by the volume snapshotter. And so the concern that I think you have with this PR was that the backup and the restore behavior weren't consistent here. And so it made sense from his point of view for his use case to use this flag to say restore PV is false, which means we won't restore either CSI snapshots or volume snapshotter snapshots. And I think there was some comments in the review from people saying that they weren't sure this was needed. And I guess the question I had for him, and I guess for people here as well, or basically anyone that's reviewed this, if we make this change, it sounds like that helps his use case where he wants to have this flag to be able to because he's using CSI for snapshots to say, no, I don't want to restore the volume. So I said, restore PV is false. And then the CSI plugin won't act on that. Is there any downside to doing that? Is there a use case that's better if the CSI plugin doesn't follow that? It seems to me that probably having the CSI plugin use that flag to not then restore solves at least one use case, and I don't think it breaks any other use cases, but that's the question we need to, I guess, figure out.
Yeah, there may be some break changes, like there may be people using the flag and expecting the CSI snapshot still restored, but I think his proposal here in this PR is more consistent to me, because these fields, I don't know the history about Velero, but when these fields were added, I don't think there's a CSI plugin.
Right, exactly. We didn't have CSI. So when CSI plugin was added, it sounds like on the backup side, we took, we took into account the restore. There was another flag it's mentioned in one of the comments here. But on the restore side, the plugin didn't. So from my point of view, I think what he's doing in this PR is probably reasonable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
I think Shubham was one of the ones that had looked at this before, so I can talk to Shubham about it as well when he gets back next week. He's still on holiday one more week this week, but.
Oh, he's coming back to the US. I thought he will taking the whole month off.
He was off the end of last month and the beginning of this month. I believe he's back next week on Monday. So
okay.
The 12th, I think.
Okay, I think Shun also has some comment here. So what do you think, Shun?
I think I'm on the same page with you, and I agree this change will make it more consistent with the previous behavior. But I found Shubham have some different thought. So
yeah. I mean, obviously, since Shubham specifically had some concerns, we'll need to wait till he gets back to sort of see if he's okay with this now, or if not, propose an alternative. Because I think either way, I think there's a use case here that needs to be resolved, and I think the easiest way to resolve it is this way, using this existing flag. But if that's not going to resolve it, then we may need a new flag, but that's going to be more confusing. So I think that's just a question I can talk through with Shubham when he gets back to as well. Because I mean, one way or another, here's a real world use case that a user needs a way to do this. And I think doing it using the existing flag rather than adding to the API is probably the most straightforward way of doing it.
Right, I agree. So yeah, let's wait for Shubham coming back and convince him and have this one merged.
Okay. And we have the other one is from myself for the introduction of the doc. And Daniel, would you like to go first, because my ones may take some time.
Oh, you want to go through the all design doc? You mean?
No, I think we can go through the goals and to see if everyone have some questions, and then we can decide.
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about the timeline first. Can you open that wiki page? Yeah. As we are finalizing the 1.11 roadmap wiki, I first want to check the timeline with Scott. We didn't have a chance to discuss with you. So I think we discussed internally in VMware about the timeline for 1.11 with the consensus that we want this be a shorter release, making sure the support progress monitoring be part of the major features. Another area we want to make improve is there used to be several requirements to add more flexibility in terms of the filters in backup CR, like the cluster resource exclude and the conditional backup of PVs. There has been some discussion internals. So I think we are ready to deliver some of the features to improve that flexibility. So Scott, I want to check with you about the timeline. Note that the feature freeze is mid of January. We want to at that point of time we want to remove all the 1.11 candidate labels from the issues. So any issues will be either in the 1.11 milestone, which means we commit, we deliver that in the milestone, and or we just move it out to future release.
And just to clarify, then feature complete is when we actually need all the PRs that implement the feature reviewed, merged, and everything. And feature freeze is just being certain we know which features are in and out, and obviously designs approved.
That is correct.
Okay, got it. And I was talking to Wes and Dylan about this earlier today. I think these dates are reasonable. I just want to. What the main caveat here is it is a fairly quick cycle, which again we both agreed, is what we want. It means we do need to be fairly diligent about, for 1.11 feature PRs, getting reviews and response to reviews and all that, fairly efficiently, because if you have
absolutely I have to admit that that's not something we from VMware we did very well in last release, because people are pulled out to in the middle of the design, people are pulled out to focus on other product features, and we paused the design, and the communication didn't go very well. So I would suggest here we work more closely. Like there is quite usual that you made some update to the PR and there's a notification from GitHub, but that email was somehow ignored. So it would be easier if you can, just ping us via Slack, both you or Shubham. I think that used to happen.
Okay, that can help. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, is that at this point, at least on the features that we're working on with the item action stuff, the design part, which is kind of that's the big thing that we have to agree on, all ahead, that's approved now. So I think going forward, we're features for individual parts of that design. So hopefully those will be a little bit, quicker to get reviews, because we don't really need everybody to look at them. We just need to get, 2 reviewers, for each PR, and that's a little more isolated. So as long as, the people assigned to review the PRs are available, and then, we can communicate on Slack to make sure that that's happening. And, and obviously, for the stuff that you're working on there, if you need Shubham or me to review again, ping me as well if I'm not responding, on Slack or whatever, so that we can just kind of, I'm just wanting to make sure that we're all kind of in agreement here that to make these dates, we're going to have to be, on top of the reviews as well as the implementation. Especially because I know on the Red Hat side, we will have that week and a half around the end of December where we're not at all in the office. And so, and I'll mention that, or I'll the next meeting as well, just to kind of bring up those dates, because there's that period of time from around the 23rd of December until the end of the year, where again, I'm not going to be in the office. So, don't expect me to be able to respond, within that time period. But other than that, I should be pretty responsive to reviews and all that.
Yeah. So if you need any immediate response, just ping us on Slack. And by the way, around the end of January, it will be the Chinese New Year in here. So we will also be, out of office for around 1 or 2 weeks around the end of January.
So yeah, as long as we get those updated, those dates in both cases, on the community meeting notes, so we know kind of who's around when. That'll help as well.
So you think these dates are okay for you guys to meet your target date, right? Because you said that you will follow up with Dylan about the
Right.
target date.
And then yeah, I did talk to Dylan and Wes as well today, and I think from our point of view, these dates are pretty much what we would have been looking for. So I say so this looks reasonable to me. And Dylan and Wes also saw these dates as well. We talked about these in a meeting earlier today. So
okay, so let's work towards these dates, but please also let us know how much flexibility will be allowed. I mean, for example, if we delay 1 or 2 weeks, will that also be okay, or you have a hard target date? If you have that, you can add that to this.
Yeah, I think this is Wes. That's totally normal part of the course. This is an aggressive schedule. I think potentially forecasting a slip of a week or two is totally normal.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that it doesn't impact your target on your product line or the other schedule on the Red Hat side. Otherwise, we can be more flexible in terms of the date.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So as for the support progress monitoring, or shall I share my screen?
Okay.
So the way we organize the feature is the issues is like before we use the milestone to track what's really in one release. So theoretically, for those issues that already put in the milestone, we're gonna remove the 1.11 candidates because we already commit. We're gonna handle that in 1.11 release. Currently we are doing the evaluation as Yonghui mentioned, and we are adding more issues into this milestone. But for these ones, I believe these are all related to the progress monitoring change. So Scott, is that okay? Assign these ones to you and Shubham?
that's fine. You can sign all those either to me and Shubham, or just all to me, and then I can move them over to Shubham. If there's something he's working on. But yeah, basically all of those are ones that I created, or Shubham had created to track the individual, implementation tasks associated with that overall design. So there's one each for the API design, the API updates rather, for V2, and then there's one for the backup controller changes and one for the restore controller changes. So and then the item operations file. So those are all the kind of lower level tasks to implement, a PR for one and another and portions of that design.
Okay, so I'm gonna assign these ones to you and remove the 1.11 candidate because we consider this committed in 1.11.
Right, because so the other milestone. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I think that's my part, Yonghui. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Then let me start on the data moment part. So here let's just have a look at the goals and the background, and first, and so we have several goals after the discussion. So first of all, we want to build Velero's built-in data moment modules and use that module to back up the CSS snapshot. So it means that we will first focus on the CSS snapshot, but it doesn't mean that we will leave everything else behind. Instead, we want to create some generic modules, data moment modules that could serve all backup kinds. For example, currently we focus on CSS snapshot backup, and then in future we may be able to, because technically speaking, when the snapshot is created by the volume snapshotter, we still be able to move the snapshot, and there's still requirement to move that snapshot. And also some vendors or some storage vendor or some some cloud platform so the support the direct access to the snapshot. So that will be different in the workflow. So we want this general data movement modules support this direct access backup as well. And the next one is
sorry to interrupt. So generally, when we talk about backup kind, we mean snapshot, right?
And backup kind, most probably yes. But I'm not sure if we have some other possibility that we for example, from my perspective, I think the port volume backup is another backup kind too, because how to say, because it is doing the data movement also. So but I think yes, for most of the cases we need to back up based on a snapshot. By that we will get better data consistency.
Okay, yeah, I just find the backup kind. I was a little confused when I initially read this about the term backup kind. Okay.
Yeah, we may need to find a better word or better term, but let's just try to understand it and make and to be on the same page right now. In most of cases, the backup kind is talking about the different to backup from the snapshot or from the source. Yeah.
As long as we
yeah.
I mean, as long as we're on the same page regarding what it means, I think I'm fine.
Yeah. For the better word, let's try to find it later. Yeah. The next one is we want to reuse the existing data path, that is the file system uploader, that is based on Copia and the unified repository. And for that, we have and the benefits and the reason have already been mentioned in the unified repository design. Yeah, and the next one is we want to reuse the existing Velero modules as more as possible. This is quite easy to understand, because we reuse the existing module while significantly reduce the effort of the development and reduce the complexity of the Velero architecture and modules and workflows, right? And yeah, and the next one is we want to leave the design space for other uploader types besides the current file system uploader. For example, we I think in future we will do the block level uploader, right? Because comparing with file system uploader, block level uploader have some unique user cases and some unique benefits. And finally,
so when we talk about the uploader, it's a module within the data mover to handle the data transfer, right?
Yeah, yes, something like here. It is inside the data path. That is to touch the data. So uploader is to touch the data. That is to read data from one place to the other or back. Something like that.
Sure.
And yeah, and finally, we want to support the plugins, data movement plugins from other vendors. And in particular, we know that OIDP has already has some existing data movement modules. We want to seamlessly integrate with it. I think all this.
Yes, but I think when we talk about plugins, they may be confusing, because when we talk about plugin in Velero, it's a narrower definition about plugin. When we talk about plugin in Velero, we think about the gRPC stuff. So do we want to support the gRPC stuff, or we just make the data mover module pluggable. I think that may imply different things in Velero.
Yeah,
what I
yeah, correct. So here, I think the meaning is later. So we want to make the vendor's data more pluggable.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
let me modify this like pluggable data movement. Okay, pluggable data movement.
yeah.
Okay, so here for the first point, Daniel, you mentioned it's something about the protocol, right? So we have provided different ways for the replacement for the pluggable data moment to replace Velero's built-in data moment. So that will come down to which way we use, and that will use different protocol. Yeah, that's for the goal. And we want to emphasize that these goals are strictly comply with the existing design or requirement PR that had been merged and created by Shubham. And we just we just to clarify. This goal is just you to clarify how we're going to do that for Velero's building data moment. That's for the goals. And as the result of the first discussion, we have discussed the modules or compounds and workflows or actions for the backup and restore. And so I think these two diagrams just show the backup and the restore. And I'm not going to go through every details of this talk, but I want to emphasize some points. First of all, it's like as you can see, we are trying, as just mentioned here for the goal, we are trying to reuse everything we can reuse in the current in the Velero, the node agents, the data paths, and the CSI plugin, right? And for the that is the first point. The second point is that we have provided 3 different ways for the replacement. That is from this kind of specific module, and from this building data mover, and from and of all the entire entire CSI or kind specific data movement pluggable modules. So different ways are for different purpose. So we can read them here. Yeah, and the third point is like we make from this building data mover, we make everything generic. So this means that this Velero building data mover could serve every kind of the backup. CSI now we serve the CSI snapshot backup, and in future we can serve any other snapshot backup because the interface because it is generic. And because it is generic, the interface is also generic. We don't want to involve any kind of specific information in this CR because this is input, right? And this part, the data path is the unique one all across the Velero world. So this one is even generic that it doesn't understand any Kubernetes information or Kubernetes thing. So the input is even generic. For example, for the file system backup, the input is a path to the root directory we are going to back up, and for block level backup, the input is it's also a path that represents the name of the block device, something like that. And
I think we may need more discussion offline about the placement. So I believe by placement you mean some modules that
Replacement, right?
can be a replacement. Yeah, sorry.
Mm,
So by replacement, you mean some of the modules that we provide as battery included as modules, but these modules can be replaced by third-party module, right? That's what you mean by replacement.
yeah, correct.
Yeah. So if that's the key, that's the point, I would suggest, at least in the initial design that we deliver in 1.11, we just identify one replacement. For example,
Yeah, correct.
we should abstract this module in a different way so that I believe for Red Hat use case, we just want to make sure the data mover can be replaced. That's
Yeah, right.
probably enough, because in Red Hat use case there's a different data path somehow by using the vol sync. But we may need more discussion offline. I understand the point that there may be a case that the third party want to reuse the data path in Velero, reuse the copia to move the data. But I don't think that's a very high priority. That may be possible, but I really doubt if there's anyone want to do that. We may need more offline.
Yeah, I think for the OIDP you mentioned, it's right the second point to replace the built-in data mover. That is exactly the same as what you mentioned. And the other two ones, right now we don't have. It's not on the top priority because right now we for the way 1.11 we don't need to implement that. But the things that I want to mention here is like because we want to keep this possibility, so we need to make the interface or protocol to make it clear or make it as a public one, right? For example, here we've already make it generic and public. We are using the BIAV2 or RIAV2 as the interface. So here we don't need to worry about. And for this one, the protocol is also this CRD. So this one has already been implemented after we implement. I mean the interface part has already been implemented after we have this one. So here I just want to say to mention that we have this these ways, but this will definitely not increase any effort to way 1.11 because all this and we have these ideas. We know which one must be a public interface, and then that will guide our design. That is for the purpose, but we don't need to implement all these three ways in Web 1.11.
No, I mean, we're not gonna implement anything in 1.11. We are implementing a design, but even for the design, I think it would be easier if we just define one set of protocols for one replacement or extension or integration, right? So yeah, I don't think we can reach consensus here in this meeting. I think we may discuss offline. But I feel it would be easier that we just provide one level of pluggable module or tell the third party like this is the module you can replace. We should probably avoid telling them you can replace this level, and this level. At least in 1.11, I don't think that's something we can really agree on. Otherwise, we will spend too much time discussing. We just
okay. I basically agree with you, and let's see how to make this in the design. Yes, I think the currently we only need to mention and design this one. That is but the other thing I want to say that indeed people don't have any or we don't have even we don't mention that this is a possibility. So people will use that even we don't mention that in our doc. but it's okay. This one is a thing or the point, or we want to have this in the 1.11 design.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's for the 3 points, and everything is reused, and which one should be a public interface, and yeah, that's for the for the points. And the last point is like here in this diagram, we see some, how to say, isolations, like we call this part like a CSI data moment, and we call this part like as a built-in data mover, and we call this part as a data path. That is something functionality as isolation. It doesn't mean that everything is a real component, real components or modules. And we also could regard them as compounds, like these ones and these ones are compounds of the CSI data moment, and this part are compounds of the built-in data mover. But yes, again, it's come down to the name or the term. Let's discuss and to see how we can make it better to understand in the doc. But the functionality is clear, clarified here. We can check this offline, and the actions is also clarified here for every action mentioned in this diagram. And finally, we, based on the current result, we have listed some sub design items, because for each of the module we have to carry quite some details. But this is not a finalized one, or it is even not enough. We may add, delete, or modify in this list. And we now have some open questions, but I believe that we'll have more. We will have more later. So let's continue the discussion based the current doc. And if we have any questions, we can list it here, or we can add comments, or we can discuss directly through the Slack. Yes, that's from my side. Do we have any instance questions right now?
So Scott, is it you or Shubham be part of all these data mover design? I know Shubham has.
So Shubham has been more involved in the data mover side than I have. So I was hoping when he gets back next week, he can take a look at this and provide some feedback there as well. And he also is the one that submitted the design PR for data movement and internal data movement as well. So.
Yeah, we're gonna combine the effort, like maybe we continue the discussion here and reflect it in his PR, or one way or another, or maybe merge some high level PR and add more detailed PR. We'll figure out with Shubham when he's back. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. If okay, then we can continue the discussion offline for this. And I think we have cover all the items right today. And do we have any further questions or comments for today's meeting? If no, I think we can finish off here. Thanks everyone. Have a good day and evening. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.